What is alt season and is it worth the risk? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Before we do get into it, please make sure to like the video and also subscribe to the YouTube. Really appreciate your support. I'm also going to put a QR code down below for a Bitcoin tip. So if you want to support the channel, feel free to leave me a little tip. Now let's get into it. So what is alt season? Alt season is this phenomenon where we see all these cryptocurrencies see significant price appreciation. If you're not familiar with the crypto market, there's Bitcoin, which I think is the true innovation, and we're going to get into why that is a little bit later in the video. And then there's all these other cryptocurrencies that people buy and sell and people speculate on. And typically during the Bitcoin rally or following a Bitcoin rally, we will sometimes see some of these altcoins like Ethereum, XRP, Stellar Lumens. There's literally like millions of them. We see them appreciate at a higher rate than Bitcoin. So Bitcoin has gone on a big rally recently. There's no secret about that. Ever since we got the election result, we've seen Bitcoin ripping. It's gone from around 70K up to 120K. We're currently sitting around 115K. And really over the past month, we've started to see Bitcoin, Bitcoin's still going higher, but we're seeing some of these altcoins going even higher than Bitcoin, right? They're seeing more appreciation. Over the past month, Bitcoin's up 9%, Ethereum's up 48%, XRP's up 39%, and Solana is up 24%. And when we look at a lot of these other altcoins out there, they are also up pretty big. So recently, we have seen some of these altcoins outperforming Bitcoin, and this has got a lot of people saying that, hey, now is the time to rotate out of Bitcoin and into these altcoins, or rotate out of other assets and into altcoins, because you're going to see more price appreciation. Let's talk about some of the reasons for why these altcoins are moving higher. I think the main one, or one of the main ones, is that Bitcoin is just rallying, right? Like I said, I think Bitcoin is the main innovation here, and I think that a lot of these other cryptocurrencies are just kind of coming along for the ride. As we see this positive Bitcoin sentiment and we see Bitcoin demand, we see people speculate and we see people hopping into these other cryptocurrencies. We can also look at adoption at the government level. Obviously, with this new administration, they've been a lot more pro-Bitcoin and pro-crypto, and the cryptocurrency market likes that, right? There's all this positive sentiment. We have this crypto czar. We're seeing in David Sachs, we're seeing all this positive crypto legislation, and a lot of people are moving into crypto because they can feel all this positive sentiment. Just last week, we saw some positive legislation for the crypto market. We saw the Genius Act passed, which is a regulatory framework for stable coins. We saw the Clarity Act passed, which is a regulatory framework for cryptocurrencies. So that could be big for the rest of these cryptocurrencies if we see them more regulated and we see more of these big institutions and these big players buying into these assets. And then we also saw the anti-CBDC Act passed, which is just legislation to prohibit a central bank digital currency. I think it would be horrible if we got a central bank digital currency. It's going to mean more surveillance. It's going to mean less freedom for us as citizens. And it's going to mean that the government can just shut your money off if you do something that they don't like. So I hope we never see one of those. But I think just in general, seeing positive legislation passed and seeing the government really pay more attention to cryptocurrency is good for these crypto assets, at least in the short term. The other main driver behind alt season is rising liquidity. As we see the money supply rise, we're going to see people move into these speculative assets. And I've really been talking about rising liquidity a lot lately because I do think it's going to rise a lot over the next 12 to 24 months. I think this is going to be a big driver behind the Bitcoin price moving higher. And I'm sure that people are also going to move into these other cryptocurrencies. And really, we're going to see all these dollars move into all assets, right? And assets are going to get priced higher in dollar terms. So liquidity rising is good for these. Really, I mean, it's not really great, right? It just means that things are moving higher. in dollar terms, but it doesn't necessarily mean that things are moving higher in real terms. However, we will probably see people moving into these crypto assets, just like we saw in 2020 when we got that huge bump in liquidity. We saw the crypto market take off. If we see that again, I expect the same thing to maybe happen. Now, why do altcoins outperform Bitcoin during alt season? The main reason is that Bitcoin is a very large asset. Bitcoin is currently at a market cap of around $2.3 trillion. If we compare that to some of the other most popular cryptocurrencies out there, we can look at Ethereum, which is around a $439 billion market cap. We can look at XRP, which is around a $180 billion market cap, and we can look at Solana, which is around a $96 billion market cap. So Bitcoin is a much larger asset, and Bitcoin is actually the 5th or 6th largest asset in the world. Moving the Bitcoin price is a lot harder because it is so large. Let's say, for example, you have someone come in and buy up $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, which typically happens every week with a big player like MicroStrategy. This, although it is a big purchase, is not going to move the price that much because Bitcoin is at a $2.3 trillion market cap. But let's say there's a cryptocurrency out there that's at a $10 billion market cap. If somebody comes in and buys up $1 billion worth of that cryptocurrency, it's going to send the price flying. So I think what we see with a lot of these other cryptocurrencies, and why we see them appreciate so much and get so volatile, and then we see them head up and then we see them crash down, is because you just have big players pumping and dumping these assets, right? A big fish can come in and pump the price. Once it goes to a higher price, they can dump the asset and people get rug pulled. So that's what we see with a lot of these meme coins, right? We've seen this meme coin mania over the years where there's like Trump coin or Peep coin or like Dogecoin, and really these assets are worthless, but we just see big players coming in, they're pumping the price up, and then once it gets to a price where they're ready to sell, they dump it, and all the people who are buying in at that top get wrecked. So I think that with some of these other larger crypto assets like Ethereum, XRP, Solana, yes, there are people behind these assets, or maybe people that believe in these assets. You can look at Ethereum. An asset doesn't get to $439 billion without some conviction in it. But I do think that these assets are still fundamentally flawed, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. But I think, like I said, the main reason we see these other cryptocurrencies more volatile and we see them appreciate more than Bitcoin is just because they're at a smaller market cap. They're easier to move. So as people rotate out of Bitcoin and they pile into Solana or whatever, because it's smaller, people can move the price easier, and this leads to these higher moves, whether it be to the upside or the downside. Let's take a look at a little chart here. This is the Bitcoin dominance chart, and what this chart shows is Bitcoin's market share of the whole cryptocurrency market. So if we look at the chart, we can see that over the past couple of years, Bitcoin's dominance has been rising. The market share has been rising, so Bitcoin's market cap is rising compared to these other cryptocurrencies. However, if we look at the last little sliver of this chart, right at the end, we could see that Bitcoin's market share has been dropping slightly. And this has got people saying that alt season is upon us. So in mid-June, we saw Bitcoin's market share around 65.72% of the crypto market, and now Bitcoin's market share is just under 62%. Now, I don't really think that's a big drop, and if you look at the trajectory of Bitcoin with this chart over the past couple of years, I think that it's going to continue because Bitcoin's superior money, and I just don't think that these other cryptocurrencies, I don't think most of them really have any worth. So I expect Bitcoin's market share to continue rising compared to these other cryptos. However, in the past, we have seen altcoins get volatile to the upside sometimes, and with Bitcoin rallying, with liquidity rising, maybe in the short term we see altcoins rise a little bit more than Bitcoin and we see this market share come down. However, like I said, I do think that we will see Bitcoin's market share continue to rise. Now, should you participate in alt season? That is up to you, and this is not financial advice, but I don't participate in alt season, and I'll tell you why. I think that most people who are buying into these altcoins, these other cryptocurrencies, really don't understand what these cryptocurrencies are. I think that most people are just gambling and speculating and hoping to make a quick buck, right? They're hoping to buy in, see these cryptocurrencies go up in price, and then they can sell and they can have more dollars, right? I don't think that a lot of the people buying into this mania really believe in these digital assets long term. And when you think about money, money wants to be one, right? We want the money that is going to hold its value the best and the money that we can use with the most people. And that's a big reason why gold has been such, gold has gone up in value over time, right? Because gold is kind of like this universal, neutral asset that everyone sees value in across the globe. So if you can take gold somewhere else, like you can probably sell it for something, right? It's going to hold its value and you're going to be able to exchange it. Now, gold has its problems. The main problem is that it's not portable, it's not divisible, right? You can't really go to the supermarket and buy things with gold, but at least it has this universal value that people understand. When we look at all these cryptocurrencies, a lot of them are trying to be the same thing, right? They're trying to be like this cross-border, low-cost, fast payment system. And the truth is, we don't need thousands of those, right? We need one cross-border payment system, one form of money that we could all use and see value in as a global society. So I really don't think it makes sense that we're going to have a ton of cryptocurrencies. I think that money wants to be one, and people naturally move towards the best form of money. And I think that money is Bitcoin. I think when money doesn't have good fundamentals, it doesn't last, right? We can look at fiat currency, we can look at the dollar. Clearly, there are some big problems with the dollar and government money, and the main problem is that the money supply just continues to increase. And really, that's a result of centralization. It's because there are people managing the money who are not doing a very good job of it, right? Who are manipulating the money, who are using the money to their advantage. And I think you're gonna run into the same problem with a lot of these cryptocurrencies. Most of them claim to be decentralized, but I don't really think most of them are decentralized. In fact, I really think that Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency that is really proven to be decentralized. If we look at Ethereum, for example, Ethereum is the second largest cryptocurrency by size. However, Ethereum is pretty centralized. The protocol is governed by a select few. They can make changes to the protocol. We saw this a couple of years ago when Ethereum shifted from proof of work to proof of stake. And in order to be a validator on the Ethereum network, you have to stake 32 Ethereum, which is pretty expensive, right? That's ruling out a lot of people from being validators. At the current price of Ethereum, that would cost around $118,000. So Ethereum is very centralized, and I really see some fundamental flaws with this cryptocurrency, along with other large cryptocurrencies like XRP or Stellar Lumens. If we look at those two, these are cryptocurrencies that are trying to be this fast, low-cost cross-border payment system. However, we see that the creators of these cryptocurrencies control most of the supply, and they also have significant influence in the validation process like Ethereum. So I really think that a lot of these cryptocurrencies, yes, they're using blockchain technology, but how is that different than the current system we have with government money if it's just a different group of people governing the money and making the decisions? I really think that decentralization is the innovation, a money that no one controls, right? A money that gives people freedom, and Bitcoin has proven to do that, at least for now. If Bitcoin continues to stay decentralized, I think we will continue to see people move towards Bitcoin. And when we look at the properties of money, durability, portability, divisibility, uniformity, limited supply or scarcity, and acceptability. I feel that Bitcoin has basically perfected these properties. So really, I think that Bitcoin is the best form of money out there. And for that reason, I think that people are going to gravitate towards it like they've been doing. Personally, I would rather hold the asset that's going to win in the end. There's a reason that Bitcoin's at a $2.3 trillion market cap, and none of these other cryptocurrencies are above a $500 billion market cap. And yeah, I may miss out on some of those short-term gains from trading these altcoins, but I'm fine with that as long as I have the asset that I think is fundamentally the best money. To all the people out there that can trade these altcoins and make money doing that, good on you. But for me personally, it is not worth the risk. That's going to wrap it up for this one. I hope that you enjoyed this video and it was informative. If you didn't like and subscribe, please make sure to do that now. Thanks for watching. I'll be back soon.